thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. And I'm very pleased to be here. I hope we have a few people that will join us. And I will, oh, Fisher, do we have 90 minutes, do you think? I think in your invitation it said 90 minutes. I can talk for as little as
Yeah,
long.
sure. Yeah, just go
Okay,
ahead.
that'd be great. Because I have some complex ideas, I think, but it's based on my work. And I'd like to explain the ideas first in the first part. Then in the second part, we'll take a little break. In the second part, I'll go through and address the issue of knowledge drain, which I think is a terribly important issue, and we'll get to that. So thank you again for inviting me. I really appreciate your
Yeah, maybe Tim,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Maybe leave some time for IC do the translation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
感谢 Fisher 他刚才对我的精彩的介绍，然后非常高兴今天在这里能给大家做一次讲座。然后今天呢，后面的内容，首先我会跟大家介绍一些跟知识管理相关的一些原理，然后呢，我们会讲到关于知识相关的一些应用，特别是如何解决关于知识型人才的流失问题。
Thank you to Fisher, especially, and ICQE for their kind help and beautiful job on translating the slides.
感谢 MentoringCo 邀请我今天为大家做这场演讲，也非常感谢 Fisher 和 IC 的帮助。
I have gotten input from Professor Michael Koenig, who's a friend and colleague of mine, and he gave some insightful comments.
同时我也非常感谢我的同事 Michael 科尼教授，他也对于我今天的讲座，然后给予了很多精彩的见解。
And thanks to each of you for attending. I hope we'll get some questions and be able to have some discussion later. And those of you who are watching later, thank you as well.
也感谢今天每一位参加或者观看我们讲座的人。然后稍后呢，我们也希望我们大家在一起就是热烈的讨论，然后进行一些问题的答疑。
I have watched a few of the previous segments on recordings, and I'm just very honored to be within this distinguished group. You've gotten some really leading experts, and I'm delighted to be among them. So thank you again for that.
我也观看了这个组织隐形技能管理系列讲座之前嘉宾的演讲，然后大家呢都是这个行业的顶尖的专家，然后能成为其中的一员呢，我也是感到非常的荣幸。
As I mentioned, we'll do a little bit of introduction. Then I'll mention something about the value of knowledge. The value of knowledge is the book that I've written, and it's basically a body of work that I've developed. And then we'll go into the business problem at hand of managing knowledge drain.
今天讲座首先我们会有一些引言，然后呢我们会讲到关于知识相关的原理，就主要讲到知识的价值，然后知识的价值呢也是我写的一本书的名称。然后最后一部分呢，我们来到是知识相关的应用问题，就关于知识流失的应对问题。
I should mention that I have indexed my ideas to some of the ideas. You'll see a little icon in the top of the screen, and that'll be a section number in the book. The book is available widely, but it's only in English, unfortunately, but you'll see a little reference to the book in certain cases.
今天我讲的内容有一部分也来自我这本书知识的价值里面的内容，然后大家也可以看到这个后面也会看到就是我这本书相关的图标，然后上面的内容呢就是出自这本书的内容。这本书呢在亚马逊可以买到。
My comments, I should say, are based on my experiences with US and European companies. I have not worked with Chinese or Asian companies. And I did mention the references to the book, so I'll be mentioning those as we go through.
我今天很多观点呢，也是基于我自身跟众多的欧美公司我们一起合作的经验。
My background, I may not be as well known as some of the speakers that you've had, so I thought I'd describe very quickly my background is in 3 sections: the academic training, my professional background, and my current activities.
我个人呢，我个人目前到现在的经历呢是非线性的，然后到目前为止划分为3个模块。首先是我的学业，然后呢是我的职业背景，然后 最后呢是我目前的状态。
So I come from a variety of backgrounds, and that's academic training. And I try to integrate various fields. I studied sciences when I was at Yale University, and then I studied for about 2 years. I studied then psychology and philosophy, which was a new program at that time, also at Yale. I took a 6-year break where I worked for the US government and some state governments in the United States in the areas of child development and public administration of child development programs. And then I went back to the Yale School of Management where I studied analytics and finance for 2 years.
首先，我是在本科的时候是在耶鲁读的，当时也是读了就2年的医学预科，然后又读了2年的心理学和哲学。然后呢，我大概有6年的时间是在为美国政府工作的，然后当时工作的重点主要是儿童发展跟行政管理这一块。然后再接着呢，我又回到了耶鲁，就读了我的硕士课程，主要是管理学。
I then began my professional career at KPMG, where I did analytics, data analytics, including modeling and forecasting for about 5 years. I then went to develops a service design work in the area of innovation and technology applications at PwC for another 5 years. I started my own company then called the Knowledge Agency, and I worked for another company, Find SVP, prior to that. But I worked in the fields of intelligence, strategic intelligence, which we call is a super category for market intelligence and competitive intelligence, and did that for about 20 years with my own company.
在离开学校以后呢，我的第一份工作是在毕马威，然后当时主要做数据分析的工作，主要涉及到建模还有预测。然后呢，我又去到了普华永道，然后普华永道里面我也有5年的经历，当时主要聚焦服务设计、技术应用创新这一块。然后我创立了自己的公司，叫 The Knowledge Agency， 这家公司目前已经26年了。然后同时我也为 Find SVP 这家公司提供服务。那在这个20年期间呢，我主要的工作是战略情报这一块，主要是涉及到比如说市场分析和竞争分析这方面的内容。
So I realized my job was kind of to integrate these various fields. So about 25 years ago, I developed an idea called the knowledge value chain, which I've now written into a book, The Knowledge Value Chain. And I'm fascinated by the areas of knowledge and information and also value, how value is produced. That's my recent book. And then what I'm working on right now is the dynamics, the change, how organizations adapt or change to new business conditions. I really come to this as a business person more than as a knowledge person. So that's my current work.
那大概在25年前的时候，我当时呢对知识信息这一块非常感兴趣，然后我自己呢当时也开发了一个模型叫做知识价值链，然后当时呢也就写了一本书叫知识价值链手册。然后呢我因为非常专注于这个知识的价值这一块，我现在同时也写了一本书叫做知识的价值。那同时我也非常的关注就是组织他们对于就是当前的各种动态变化的适应情况，所以我非常也聚焦商业环境的变化，然后同时在商业环境里这个组织如何应对这个知识的各方面的问题。
I just a few things to mention to get us started. As you all know, I'm sure the intangible assets of which knowledge is a part make up a larger and larger share of overall enterprise value. However, my observation is that most enterprises, most companies or government agencies manage their intangible assets far less carefully, with far less diligence than their physical assets, their property, plant, equipment.
我相信就是在组织企业里的就是各位，大家也都有一个感觉，就是无形资产，就是包括知识在内，无形资产它在企业价值中的比重是越来越大的。但是就是据我的观察，就大多数企业包括政府，他们在管理无形资产的时候，是所花的精力，它的重视程度远不如于这个有形资产。
The loss of enterprise knowledge through the loss of personnel is what I will call epistemic threat. This threat, which we'll talk about later today, cannot be eliminated or completely cured, but it can and should be managed carefully. I've developed what I call a phased solution before, during, and after an employee exit process, and have recommended those to manage this threat. That's a preview of what I'm going to tell you about.
那因人员就是企业员工流失而导致的企业知识的流失呢，这里有一个概念，就是我们叫做认知威胁。那这种威胁它不能被消除，或者说直接治愈解决，但是是可以得到管理的。那我呢就设计出了一个方案，这个方案它是分阶段的，就是在员工离职之前、离职之期和离职之后采用的。我们呢使用这种解决方案来管理这种威胁。
So I will describe some general overall principles in this section. This is the second part.
好，现在呢来到我们的第二部分，我会向大家介绍一下就是知识相关的一些原理。
The first thing I'll say that anything I say today pretty much applies to a scale of activities from the individual micro level, from the individual knowledge worker up through the team level, through the enterprise level, and even to society in general. These principles will apply at a very large macro scale and a very small micro scale as well.
那知识原理它是从微观到宏观，它是涉及到各个层面的。从微观从小它是关乎到个人的，然后呢，它也关乎到我们的团队、工作小组、社区、社群，同时也关乎到企业，然后从更大范围就是与整个社会都是息息相关的。
One integrating theme, for example, is the purpose, which I've written lately for the conference board about the purpose. So the purpose of an individual knowledge worker, I think, needs to be tied into the enterprise purpose and the goal of the enterprise. So purpose is a unifying theme that goes across all of these. The clearer an individual knowledge worker is about their overall purpose and the enterprise purpose, the better.
那同时我也发现，就是关于目标这个概念是很重要的，就是我们个人的目标呢，要与这个企业的目标是息息相关的，就包括在团队内，我们个人的目标跟整个团队、整个企业的目标，然后乃至整个社会的目标呢，都是一致的、相关的。
So knowledge, my screen is covering. Let's see, how do I get this moved? Yeah, there we go. Knowledge is, I developed something called the knowledge value chain. So I'm going to show you a simplified version of the knowledge value chain, but the goal of knowledge is not just knowledge, it's agency, it's being able to do things and create value for the organization.
知识呢，就是我这里就有一个比较简化的一个知识价值链。我们说知识价值链，知识它是达到目的的一种手段，它是可以帮助我们创造价值的。
Let's see, there we go. Most models of knowledge start with data, information, knowledge, intelligence, and end there. My model differs in that I go beyond the normal models of knowledge, but it starts with that at the base.
那在我的这个模型里面呢，其实知识呢，我们首先从知识开始看起。其实它涉及的范围其实是更广的，我们就是从这个底层的知识来看起。
Let's see, I'll hide that. Yeah. The end of what we do knowledge work for is to create value for our enterprise. Value defined as results, outcomes, impact, And when I say the word value within an organization, they say, well, what do you mean? I say, well, whatever your strategy is and whatever your purpose, whatever the mission or purpose of the organization is, that's what knowledge is supports, and that's what the end goal of knowledge is.
我们说知识就是它的终极目标，它是为了达到一个目的，这个目的呢是为企业创造价值，这个价值它具体体现为就企业的它的结果、成果和影响。我们说到这个价值具体，比如说我们说这个企业它的战略是什么，它的目标是什么，它的使命是什么。那么知识的作用呢，就是为了来支撑这个它为企业创造价值的。
So I see knowledge as an economic relationship, so that there's a supply side and a demand side. The supply side is what we call producers of knowledge, which is probably the people on the call. The demand side is the users of knowledge, which are typically the executives in an organization that make decisions and create value.
那按我们的观点呢，知识呢，它其实也是一种经济关系，所以这里也有了就是供应跟需求的这个概念。那供应的话，它有知识的生产者，那生产者主要是这个组织内部的一个核心人员。那需求者呢，往往是企业的就是管理层高层，是要他们用这个知识帮助他们来做决策、做行动的。
In between those two is the function of knowledge management, which we call knowledge resources management, that moderating those two factors, the knowledge management or knowledge resources management is the go-between, is the conduit between knowledge disciplines and value and strategy.
那我们说到知识管理以外呢，其实还有一个知识资源管理。这个知识资源管理，它也是就是用来去帮助这个企业来创造价值的。
So again, knowledge is a means to an end, in my view. And the end is agency or being able to create value, doing stuff, making decisions. That's the actual end.
那所以我们说这里的知识，它是一种手段、一种方法，然后最终呢是为企业来就是创造价值、来做决策、做行动的。
So most knowledge managers, in my view, in my observation, work downward from this middle part. They work on managing data, information, knowledge, intelligence, and in terms of what I call process optimization, in terms of tweaking the process, in terms of getting the right resources, in terms of what I call management or doing things right. And that is a difficult job, and it's a big job as well. But that's what most knowledge managers focus on, is that downward management of those resources.
那据我了解的是，很多知识管理者，知识管理人员，他们只做的就是这个是向下管理的工作，就是具体的就管理到这个数据啊、信息啊、情报这些资源，然后呢，在这个过程中也把这个流程他们是要优化的，就是他们会是把这个事情、把这个方法、这个流程给它做对。
So what I'm advocating is that strategy is very important too, managing to the needs of the organization, what I call strategic relevance, doing the right things. It's time for knowledge management to address those issues, like the issue we're talking about today of business brain drain. That's an enterprise level issue, but strategic relevance to doing the right things is often overlooked by knowledge managers, but they need to look up and I think focus more on strategy of the overall organization as well.
然后呢，就是在很多就是这个知识，其实知识管理对于企业它的需求是非常重要的，就是从战略层面来讲，因为这个企业因为常常是面临这个就是知识型人才这个流失的问题，但是大多数企业呢，往往忽略了这个知识管理的问题。那么我们是希望就是更多的企业它能够重视这个问题，在整个企业内部都能够就是做好这个知识的战略管理。
So from the KVC, what are the lessons we can learn from the KVC? The first is that knowledge is a process that happens inside an enterprise and also outside an enterprise. And I'll show you a little more detail about the full model in a second.
那我们能从就是上面这个知识的价值链中学到什么呢？第一个，首先知识它是发生在企业内部和外部的过程。那接下来我们也会向大家介绍一些模型。
Knowledge is economic. As I mentioned, it produces costs by consuming time and other resources, but it also produces benefits, results, outcomes, and impact. I believe knowledge should be managed as an investment, not simply an expense. There should be a return on the investment of knowledge.
第二个知识呢，它也是属于经济范畴的，因为知识它会通过我们消耗时间和其他的资源，然后产生成本，它同时也能产生收益。这个收益就是体现在结果、它的成果以及影响。然后知识呢，它应该是作为一项投资，而不是作为支出来管理。
There's actually a mathematical relationship, and we define value in my book as a relationship between benefit and cost. It's very simple. One of the ways to measure it is the ratio, simple ratio of benefits divided by costs.
那我这里呢有一个公式，我在我的书里也提到的，就是这个知识它产生的效益跟成本之间的关系，其实也是很简单的一个公式，就是价值等于效益，它除以成本。
Knowledge is descriptive, not prescriptive, meaning to say knowledge does not have agency. It does not take actions by itself. It does not make decisions. Without agency, knowledge by itself produces costs, but few benefits. But with agency, knowledge produces value in terms of benefits greater than costs.
我们还就是发现知识它是描述性的，不是规定性的。然后就其本身而言，知识它本身是没有代理权的，它既不能采取行动，也不能做决定。那没有代理的话，知识它是会产生成本的，但是呢，收益会比较少。但是在有这个代理的情况下呢，知识它是可以产生价值的，而且这个收益呢，它是大于成本的。
Now here's another. These are heavy abstract ideas, but you'll recognize this right away. This is our world has two complementary aspects: the phenomenal and the epistemic. The phenomenal is the world we know, the world of things that we touch, things as they are, the material world, the universe, the tangible things we can touch, what we call the real world or reality. That's what we call the phenomenal world. We'll refer to that term.
现在我们从就是另一个层面来看这个关于知识的话题，就我们就是每个人我们的世界呢，其实是存在互补的两面的。这个两面一个是现象，一个是认知。现象就是我们就所接触的世界的这个样子，这个事物原本的样子，物质的世界、宇宙以及我们能触摸到的有形的这个现实。
And then there's the epistemic world, which is our name for things as represented, the virtual world, the metaverse, the intangible, the narrative, things when we talk about data or information or knowledge or intelligence or maps or models or metrics, we're talking then about the epistemic representation of that phenomenal world.
除了现象呢，那另一面就是我们的认知。认知就是我们就是认为这个事物它所代表就是背后的这个样子，那就是我们的认知，我们的虚拟世界，包括元宇宙、无形的那些叙述性的都是认知。然后这些认知呢，我们可以通过比如像数据、信息、知识、情报，像一些绘图、模型、指标来体现。
And in between those is a bridge, and the bridge between the epistemic and the phenomenal, that's a role of knowledge management, really, is to bridge that gap and let your organization know that there's a whole world of information. That's kind of what knowledge managers do. Technology in particular links the phenomenal and epistemic in such a close-knit way so that, if I pick up my phone and I call a car, and within 5 minutes, a car comes. I pick up my phone and I order a book, and the same day a book comes. So the integration through technology of this world and the real world is closer and closer all the time. It's very exciting.
那在现象跟认知之间呀，有一座桥梁，就是在组织观这座桥梁呢，也是就是拉近现象跟这个认知之间的距离。那知识管理呢，在组织内部正好起着这样的作用。然后我们也是，就是现在我们就是每天接触的这些技术，也是将这个现象跟认知结合的一种方式。就像比如说我们拿出手机，然后要订一辆车，然后这辆车5分钟就到了。那正是这个技术，就让我们把这个现实世界跟这个就是虚拟的世界把它结合了起来。
There's another concept in the book I developed called cognitive perimeter. We'll talk about the knowledge residing in our current workforce, the resident knowledge within our current workforce. Let's say is this green, the total combined knowledge of our workforce is this green circle here.
这里我们再来看一个概念，叫做认知边界。这个也是我在我的书里提到的。这个认知边界就在这个绿色框里，它代表的就是，比如说组织内部我们目前的工作团队里，然后存在的知识。
Now we have the opportunity to expand the I'll call it the cognitive perimeter. The border around our organization of our knowledge is much larger than just within our workforce. The total available knowledge available to us, we call TAK, the total available knowledge is much greater than just our resident workforce. For example, firm alumni or firm customers, suppliers, analysts, academics can all be seen as part of our expanded cognitive perimeter, our knowledge universe that we can deal with in an organization.
那我们就是组织内部，就是目前团队中有的知识呢，我们就叫做 RK， 就把它称作现有知识。那这个现有知识它是可以无限扩大的。比如说大家看这个外面的圈，我们是可以把它全部扩大为企业可用的全部知识，叫做 TAK。那这个扩大的知识呢，我们可以从其他的这个渠道来获得，比如说这个企业的以前的员工，就是已经离职的那些员工，然后包括我们的客户、供应商、分析师、学者，这些他们都可以就是用来帮助我们扩大我们这个企业现有的知识边界。
So again, the total available knowledge, TAK, is far greater than the resident knowledge and is infinitely expandable. The TAK is much greater, mathematically speaking, than the resident knowledge and the RK.
那所以我们这个企业可用的全部知识呢，它是远远大于我们企业现有的知识的，而且是可以无限的就是扩展的。
Just to back for a second, I hope are clear that we must not confuse the recipe and the cake. The recipe is a piece of information that we use to make a cake.
这里呢又有两个概念，就是食谱跟蛋糕，就我们不能把这两个概念混为一谈。那食谱呢，它是信息，关于我们如何做蛋糕的信息。
Even the knowledge of how to make the cake is even something separate. So that my wife, for example, can take a recipe and make a delicious cake. I could take the same recipe and not have any idea of how to make a cake because the knowledge, the how to make the cake is even something different. And these are things we call, the recipe we call information. The knowledge is the how to make the cake. And what we'll call the reality is the cake itself. So this is again, the division between the epistemic world of information and knowledge and the phenomenal world, the real world, the cake.
那我们在拥有了食谱以后呢，具体是怎么做这个蛋糕呢？这个是方法，它代表的是知识。 而且其实相同的食谱可能在不同的人手里运用的方法可能又有不一样。那在不一样的结果呢，最后就变成了现实。那在这里我们也看到，就是信息知识，然后跟现实，它也是一个认知跟现象的区别。
Knowledge is not equal to information. Knowledge this is the knowledge value chain, my model, an expanded version of the model. And the model, I make a clear distinction, and in my book, I really discuss at length the clear distinction between knowledge and information. And I think they're confused a lot of times. A lot of knowledge management people are actually managing information, and they forget that they're different.
这个呢是我设计的知识价值链模型。这个我呢，在我的书里也是把这个知识跟信息做了明确的区分的。因为很多人其实把知识跟信息的概念呢给混淆了，他们是有很大的区别的。
This distinction was pointed out a long time ago. One of the first scholars of knowledge in the United States, at least, was Peter Drucker. In his book on business strategy, Managing for Results in 1964, he said, knowledge is a specifically human resource. It only resides in humans. What's information is held in databases and documents and books, that kind of thing.
那这个 Peter Drucker 他在他的这个成果管理这本书里提到这样一句话，说知识它是一种专门的人力资源，也就是说知识它只是存在于我们人类大脑里的。那在信息呢，它是可以在像数据库，它是可以在文档里，是可以在这个书本里的。
So in my book, I go through some of the differentiations between clear differences between information and knowledge. Information is explicit. It's what's in books and texts. Knowledge, I believe, quite frankly, is all tacit. I don't believe there's anything such as explicit knowledge. I think that's a misnomer. All knowledge is tacit. All knowledge is held in human brains. Knowledge at the same time is organic. It's dynamic. It's always changing. Information is basically static and inanimate. Knowledge is very localized, and information can be scaled globally instantly. But knowledge is really held in individuals locally in their heads. And where knowledge is networked by nature, information is linear, hierarchical. If you've ever managed a database, you'll understand it's hierarchical. Information is easily managed in linear terms. Knowledge, not so much.
那这里我们把信息跟知识也做了一个明确的区分。那首先信息它是显性的，然后它是没有生命的、静态的，它是可以扩展的，而且它是可以线性封存的，就像比如说在数据库里，它是很容易管理的。而知识呢，它是往往是隐性的，就可能存在于我们的就是个大脑里，然后它是有机的，也是动态变化的，它是局部的，也是很就是个人化、个性化的，同时它也是比较就是网络化的。然后相对于信息的话，它就不那么容易管理。
So before I go to the next slide, you'll just notice that information is the basis. It's the foundation. It's where knowledge sits on, and information in turn sits on data. But we'll define something called paraknowledge, which is that information that is closest to knowledge.
我们知道信息它跟就是知识呢，也是在这个价值链里是就是紧靠是相邻的。那信息呢，其实相对而言它也是知识的一个基础。这里我们来看一个新的概念，叫做准知识。
All knowledge workers have information that's more important to them than other information. So we're defining paraknowledge as a kind of information that's value relevant. It stands next to knowledge. In fact, it's very close to what is called explicit knowledge. It's curated, it's filtered, it's organized toward a specific business goal. And for an individual knowledge worker, it's required to perform a job effectively and efficiently. That's what we call the paraknowledge available to a knowledge worker.
那准知识它是一种也是一种信息，那这种信息它是与价值相关的。这个准知识它就是信息，它是就在价值链里，它就是紧靠着这个知识的，它也叫做显性知识。那这个准知识它也是就是组织或者个人，他为了特定的这个商业目的或者目标，会经过策划，会经过过滤、组织而形成的。那这个个人在工作的时候，就是为了完成一项工作，就高效的完成这项工作的时候，他是需要获得这个准知识来就是帮助他完成这个工作的。
So the information or para knowledge that a worker uses is most useful as a table of contents. It's not the same as a body of knowledge, but it's an index, it's an outline, it's a table of contents. It enables access to a body of knowledge. And how will we use this here? Well, think of an individual worker, somebody who's perhaps going to retire, as having a body of knowledge that they use, and with that, they use this body of para knowledge or information resources that they use in their job.
那这个准知识它跟这个知识体系也有点区别，它大多数呢主要体现为这个知识体现的一个纲要或者目录。那这个纲要目录正好呢也是可以便于这个个人去访问这个知识体系。那这个准知识呢，它也主要多用于就是个人，然后在运用这个知识体系的时候，可以就是帮助到他。
Knowledge transfer is an imperfect process. In theory, we wish that it would be the case that a person A could transfer their knowledge immediately to person B through mental telepathy or something. So, for example, I'm speaking to you, and I'm sure these are abstract concepts. You're struggling to understand what I'm saying and struggling to learn what I'm saying. If I could magically tap into your brain, that would be a wonderful thing. In theory, we can transfer knowledge person A to person B.
知识转移这个过程呢，它往往是不完美的。就比如说从理论上来讲，我们总是希望，比如说我具备的知识，我希望可能能够及时的、立马的，就是完完整整的，就是转移给你。但实际是比较困难的。比如说我说一些比较抽象的概念，那你就是在吸收的过程当中，可能就不能那么就是有点难，然后不能那么好像非常完美的，就是完完整整的，就是全部就是传递过去。
In practice, however, what really happens is that the knowledge that I have, let's say, just as an example, the knowledge of person A, that's me, and the knowledge of person B, that's you in the audience, has to go through information. It has to go through my words. It has to go through my computer. It has to go through the internet. It has to go through Zoom. There are a lot of transformations. That I step is actually several steps of transformation. And before my knowledge gets anywhere near to you. That's what we call translation. It's such an imperfect process we call translation, just as if translating from Chinese to English and back and forth is an imperfect process. But it's the process we all go through. When I'm speaking to you and you're listening, I'm not transferring knowledge. I'm going through my words, which is my information. When I'm teaching, I taught for a while at Columbia, for example, and when I was teaching, I would give lectures, I would have slides. That's all producing information that then my students would take as the listeners and the students and try to learn from me. But it's a very, very imperfect process.
那我们举个例子说，比如说我是 A， 然后我的知识，然后现在要传递给你，就是作为观众的你是 B。那从我这边我的知识就是传递给你的过程当中呢，其实它也是就是有一些就是介质的，比如说它有一些步骤的，比如说我说话，我的话语传递给你，那我通过电脑、通过网络，我们通过 Zoom 这些媒介传递给你，然后在这个传递的过程当中，它其实并不是一个特别完美的过程。就像我现在一会儿说的英文，然后一会儿用中文传递过去，这个是我们说这个过程叫做转化，这个知识的转化过程呢也是不完美的。然后比如说我在就是教课上课，那我给学生讲一些内容， 我就是做一些讲座、上课，然后我通过我的 PPT，然后向学生传递一些讯息。那学生呢一边听一边学，但其实这个知识转化过程中呢，它也是不完美的。
So knowledge cannot be transferred directly, only translated through information. So in effect, knowledge is the pipeline. It's like the medium through which we transfer knowledge. And that process of knowledge translation introduces distortions in person K. The knowledge of person B and person A does not exactly match.
那我们得出呢，就是几个结论。就首先，知识它是不能够直接转移的，它只能通过信息去转化。然后这个信息呢，它扮演的是一个管道，是媒介的作用，它是我们通过这个媒介来转移知识。然后知识它在转化过程当中呢，也会出现一些失真，就是 A 的知识它是不可能完全变为 B 的知识的。
So this mismatch between knowledge A and knowledge B is one of the primary reasons why knowledge transfer is different. The other one is that the speed of knowledge is also problematic, the speed of this transition. We have the phenomenal world, the world of reality. We have the world of knowledge. We have the world of information, which we've seen are separate. But the key thing is they move at different speeds. While reality is changing constantly all the time, the reality of what's going on in the world, in the business world, in the world, is constantly changing. Things are different now than they were 45 minutes ago when I started speaking to you. The world of knowledge changes also. It's a human organic process. It changes as well. But we'll call that dynamic. It's not hyperdynamic. It doesn't move as fast as reality. Our knowledge about the world does not move as fast as the world itself moves. And our information, our documentation is fairly static. Once we document things, say in an organization, we document best practices or something like that, or create a database, that's fairly static. And okay.
那我们就是在对于组织而言，这个知识它的这个传递速度呢，也是就是它的一个核心优势。就我们前面我们讲到，就是我们有现象有认知，那么我们既有现实的世界，又有知识的世界，也有信息的世界。现实的世界它是超级动态的，它是就像我们现在的商业世界，它是不断的在变换的。然后知识的世界呢，它也是有机的动态的变化的，但是它的这个动态变化呢，就是没有现实那么快。然后信息世界呢，它就是完全是静态的。我们说信息它可以就存在文件里，然后在这个数据库里，然后在组织的这个比如说最佳实践的这个知识库里，它是完全静态的，是不一样的。
So those transitions from reality to knowledge to information all consume resources and all consume time. And in doing so, a lag is created. As I mentioned, there's a lag between reality and knowledge. There's another lag, a separate lag, or latency, some people call it latency, a lag between knowledge and our ability to document that knowledge in terms of information.
然后我们说这个就是现实，然后转换为知识，知识转换为信息，它因为中间需要消耗资源和时间，所以都是存在滞后的。
The speed of knowledge, many people have written, and I completely agree. I've studied competition in companies for about 25 years, and the speed of knowledge seems to be the unifying most important competitive advantage. The quicker this translation from reality to knowledge to information happens, the faster it happens, the more adaptive an organization is and the more competitive an organization is. The total lag, which would be, we'll call total epistemic lag, is those two lags added together, the lag between reality and knowledge and lag 2 between knowledge and information. I don't know of a way we can measure this lag, and it's challenging to figure out how to reduce it, but we try. But that's our goal. The second part of our challenge, I mentioned the first part being the imperfectness of the translation. The second part is that it's time consuming. it takes a long time and it takes resources to do this. Those are two impediments to this happening.
然后这个就是知识转化它的速度，就根据我们就是过去的就是20几年的这个经验，我们发现这个知识转化的速度，它是对于其组织而言，它是最宝贵的一个竞争优势。如果说这个知识，比如说从现实转化为知识，然后知识转化为信息，这个转化的速度越快，那么这个组织的竞争优势呢也就越大。那这里呢有一个总的认知滞后，这个认知滞后就是2个滞后的相加，就是从现实转化为知识的一个滞后，然后再从知识转化为信息的一个滞后。那我们了解了这个滞后以后，又如何来衡量这个滞后，又如何能够来减少这个滞后？这个也是我们在知识这个转移过程中就是遇到的挑战之一。那知识转移它主要有2个挑战，一个是我们前面提到的，就是知识转移过程它总是不完美的，因为它会出现一些失真，出现一些不匹配。那第2个就是它就出现这种滞后，我们是需要去想办法去减少这种滞后的。
So organizations strategically, when they're thinking about knowledge strategy, choose among 2 fundamental knowledge strategies. One of these is called codification. That's a knowledge strategy, which says we're going to be document-centric, we'll be information-centric, we'll create a lot of databases of best practices, we'll rely on enterprise search, we'll do those kinds of information-based knowledge management.
然后应对前面的这个挑战呢，我们会采用这个知识战略。知识战略也是有2个层面。首先，第一个是信息层面，就是我们信息层面呢，主要是编码，它主要是以文件为核心的。就我们企业内部我们做的像这个最佳实践数据库，像我们其实一些搜索库，这些信息为主的这个编码是一种战略。
The other strategy is personalization. That's more of a people-centric, knowledge-focused strategy that involves things like we're talking really about here today, mentoring, like communities of practice, like identifying people of subject matter experts within an organization and building networks of these subject matter experts.
然后除了这个以信息为主的这个编码以外，我们另一种战略是以知识为主的，它主要是以人为核心的。我们比如可以采用说导师辅导的方法，也可以采用这个像实践社区，或者是说就是我们把一些行业专家然后聚集起来，然后形成一个专家网络，这些都是个性化的这个知识战略。
The best strategy turns out to be something called a hybrid strategy, which uses both and optimizes the integration of information with knowledge and ensures the most effective knowledge transfers. The challenge is in US companies, at least in European companies, knowledge management tends to be run either by an IT, information technology group, and it tends to be codified, or by a human resources group where it tends to be personalized. There's some divisions of labor, and sometimes a hybrid strategy does not get fully realized because of these political silos within organizations.
最好的这个战略呢，就是混合战略，就是能够将这个知识和信息然后整合，然后再进行优化，就将这2种战略结合，这样呢能够确保最有效的知识转移。然后在现实情况呢，我们也会遇到一些挑战，比如说我遇到的一些公司，然后企业内部在就是知识管理，有的企业它主要是以 IT 部门为，就是他们来主导，然后他们主导的方式主要就是这个编码的这个策略。那还有的呢，就是这个个性化的，它主要比如说是 HR 部门他们主导的，但因为企业内部往往存在一些可能比较就是政治性的问题，然后导致这2种方法不能很好的融合，所以就不能够很好的就是实现这个最有效的知识转移。
I know that's a lot to absorb, and before we get into the application to our problem of knowledge drain, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and let your brains rest and
Okay.
let Fisher say a few words.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim, for that. Okay, just a second. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, just a second. Okay.
我们现在就是在进行最后一部分应用之前呢，我们就短暂的休息一下。
OK， 那我 OK， 在这个时间呢，我想跟大家分享一下。那么同时呢，就像 Tim 刚刚跟大家讲的，就这个组织隐形技能这一块。那么事实上呢，组织隐形技能这一块呢，它是个非常新的一个话题。所以呢，今年呢，我们在12月在这边叫 second OK。我们会在今年的12月17号和18号，在中国海南的博鳌举办全球首届组织隐形技能管理博鳌论坛。那它的主题呢，叫做拯救组织隐形技能，助人振起强国。那么这个主办单位呢，是由海南省委人才局和海南人才集团以及我们 MentoringCo 公司联合主办。那这次演讲这次的活动里面呢，我们会邀请到5到10名左右财富500强总部 CEO， 不是他们地区 CEO， 是总部 CEO， 以及业界翘楚的 CEO， 包括国际知名公司的代表，中国知名大学校长，包括像北大、清华、复旦、中欧这样的校长和院长，那么以及国内大公司的 CEO 董事长。因为你知道，大家都知道，中国的500强公司呢，中国有很多已经占了100多位了啊。那么这个论坛呢，我们也采取主题分享、圆桌论坛、案例分享、实战工坊等形式。我们呢，外国嘉宾呢，主要用直播形式进来。那中国的嘉宾呢，本土嘉宾呢，我们就会在线下。所以我们预计呢，全球所有的观众呢，预计可以达到200万人。那么预计可能在60-70个国家，都有很多朋友一起参加，包括很多政府官员都会参加。所以在这种情况，我们想也想去呢，把这样的好的机会呢分享给各位朋友。如果你呢对此感兴趣、有兴趣的话，也欢迎你呢，就是说来参加这个线上部分啊。因为我们线下部分呢有限，因为场地比较有限，因为疫情的控制，政府呢不会让我们做的很多。但是我们把线上部分呢全部开通给到大家。那这个论坛呢，那如果说哪些朋友有兴趣的话，你呢可以去买我们的早鸟票。那早鸟票呢现在是199一张，你就扫码，你要扫这个码，然后付了钱的码就可以了。然后呢，原价呢是999，我们差不多每10天，往前拉100块钱，每10天拉100块钱，直到就拉到999，基本上就是这么一个情况。那么我们也欢迎各位朋友有兴趣，你来见识这帮高手，包括这次我们可能会邀请到像马斯克、像比尔盖茨、像巴菲特这样人物都可能会进来，包括我们邀请到像可口可乐的百事可乐的全球CEO， 像辉瑞的全球 CEO 等等。那么这些都是我们在邀请的 ，OK， 所以欢迎各位呢，也关注我们这个领域。那么组织隐形技能萃取这个领域呢，组织隐形技能管理这个领域呢，在全球都是一个很新的一个话题。那很多公司呢对此都非常的头痛。那么呢，基本上我们讲，在很多公司里面目前呢都还没找到一个很好的解决方案。所以我们呢在这个背后呢，我们有一个强大的智库。所以我们今年的10月28号会成立一个叫全球组织隐形技能管理全球智库，我们会在 online 去成立，都是由一批全球顶尖的一帮科学家和一帮企业实战级人士，包括一些社会组织的这帮专家一起组成的，好吧？欢迎大家就是扫码关注这个票子，是吧？因为这个票子呢，你越往后面买呢，价钱会越贵，基本上你会花这个钱呢，基本上你会听到近80名左右专家的讲座啊，近80名左右全球顶尖专家的讲座，所以基本上就你现在买嘛，差不多2块钱听一个人的讲座，听一个高手的讲座 ，OK， 我这边跟大家简单分享一下，如果大家有兴趣的话，欢迎你呢，就是说那个扫码 来给我这个票子，好吗 ？OK， 好。Now over to Tim. Okay.
Okay.
Just
Thank
let
you.
me okay. Yeah, let me give you the Excel, right? Okay.
Okay.
So now you can just also share your screen. So I just want to give a short introduction to our forum in December.
Great. Super.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, Tim. Thank you.
I'm not sure if we have anybody other than ourselves on this call, but that's okay. Managing knowledge drain. So how do we apply? That was a lot to deal with, but those principles will come in handy in applying those principles to this problem of knowledge drain.
最后一部分是应用，就如何管理知识的流失。我们刚才介绍了那么多就知识相关的原理，然后现在我们来看如何运用它们。
The hybrid strategy is the one that will well. Let me just first describe the brain drain, as you probably know, is a big problem. I was surprised to see there are over 1 billion knowledge workers worldwide, according to Gartner research, and that represents about 40% of the workforce in developed countries. I should have mentioned, but I'll mention to you now that that varies a lot within industries. Certain industries have many more knowledge workers, like technology companies, and some have fewer knowledge workers, like construction companies. But overall, it's about 40% of the workforce in China and the USA and Europe.
首先我们来看一下这个人才流失的这个现状。我们知道现在就是全球有超过10亿的知识工作者。那这些知识工作者，就是我们知道有的行业、有的公司，它的人才呢就是偏向于知识型的更多一点。比如说像这个技术性的公司，他们往往就是员工的更多都是偏向知识型的。那在就是总体来说呢，这个我们知道这个10亿的知识工作者，它总体来说主要在发达国家，它是占这个劳动力的是占了40%的。
But the global workforce is not growing as fast as the labor demand. Baby boomer retirements are accelerating. And at least in the United States, there's something called the Great Resignation. Post-COVID, especially younger generations are leaving their jobs earlier.
但是呢，这个在全球范围内，劳动力的增长速度它并没有赶上这个劳动力需求的速度，就是这个应该说是供小于求。然后在婴儿潮一代正好现在面临一个退休潮，这个退休潮正在就是加快。然后同时我们知道疫情期间有个离职热潮，这个离职的热潮呢，也让这个年轻一代的人他们会早早的离开这个工作岗位。
The war for talent is really higher than it's ever been before. In the United States now, there are 2 open jobs for every 1 person seeking work. And finding adequate personnel remains a top concern of senior leadership. Here's a survey from the conference board that I'm affiliated with the conference board. I was not involved in the survey. You can see survey results in a nutshell. Worldwide, attract and retain talent is the #1 concern of CEOs in the US and Europe and China and Japan. Everywhere globally, attracting and retaining talent is the biggest priority for CEOs in 2022.
所以这个就导致了这个人才争夺战。在美国的话，就是只要有一个求职者，就有2个空缺的职位。所以对就是企业的这个高层领导人来说呢，就是寻找到这个足够的人才是他们最关心的问题。那这里正好有一个是2022年的一个全球范围内对 CEO 的调查，是 CEO 他们就是最关心的话题。那这张表里呢也显示了不管是在美国、在欧洲还是中国、日本，还在整个全球范围内 ，CEO 们他们最关注的这个问题，第一个就是如何吸引并留住人才，人才就是现在 CEO 在全球范围内最关心的话题。
So a hybrid strategy, we ended the first section by talking about a hybrid strategy And that's what we're going to use to solve this problem.
那我们就是应对这种情况呢，我们就是采取一个混合的战略。
So we mentioned in the first section the two major barriers to knowledge transfer are distortions in the person-to-person knowledge translation process and time and resources consumed by the knowledge development process.
我们前面也提到过，在知识转移过程中有2个主要的障碍。首先，第一个是就是在人与人之间在知识传递转化的时候会出现一个失真。第二个就是知识的开发过程，它会需要消耗大量的时间和资源。
So we will address these through a hybrid strategy, which involves codification, that is documentation of knowledge resources or information resources, and personalization, the coaching and mentoring that your group is especially knowledgeable at.
然后在应对这些障碍的时候呢，我们最好是通过这个混合的战略来解决。一方面是基于信息的编码，就是将这个知识资源，然后以文档的形式体现。第二个呢，就是基于知识的个性化，就可以通过我们比如说我们用教练或者导师的辅导的方式，然后来实现这个知识的转移。
I should mention the hybrid strategy has been used for centuries by universities. At least in the West, it's been used for 1,000 years by universities and trade apprenticeships. But universities, for example, give you a lot of information, books to read and videos to watch, but then they coach you, they mentor you through, they have teachers, lecturers that guide you through. So it's a personalized strategy based on information.
这个就是混合的战略呢，它就是经过过去的几个世纪呢，它也是得到了一个验证的。比如像美国这边，我们就很多高校也是在就是学生就学习的时候呢，会就是有一方面它有很多的信息，像知识啊，或者像很多的书本、视频学习的，同时呢，还有就是基于知识的，我们会提供这个导师或者教练的辅导，然后所以就结合了这个基于信息的编码，然后以及基于知识的这个个性化，所以这个已经得到过成功的验证。
So we recommend a 3-phase solution. These will be 3 phases, A, B, and C, related to the exit of an employee through retirement or leaving the company for some other reason. We'll have 3 phases, A, B, and C.
这里我们是提出一个建议，是分为3个阶段的解决方案。这个3个阶段主要是在比如我们的核心员工他在离职或者退休之前，然后之中之后采取的方案。
The first thing we recommend is what we call KRI, Knowledge Resources Inventory. And the timing of that would happen before an employee exits. Basically, the goal is to map each individual knowledge worker, their information-based workflow. It's to map that workflow.
首先，第一个就是在员工，比如说在他离开之前，我们对他的知识资源进行一个盘点。具体的方式呢，主要是我们针对每个知识性的员工，然后把他们的这个工作的流程图把它绘制出来，绘制成一个就是流程图。
During the exit process, we recommend something called mentored offboarding. I'll describe each one of these in a subsequent slide. Mentored offboarding is a structured knowledge interview as part of the standard employee exit process.
在员工离开的期间，就是这个手续期间，我们可以进行一个他离职的辅导，主要是一定要求对这个员工进行一个结构化的知识访谈。这个访谈呢，要作为他这个标准离职程序的一部分。
Then following exit, and this is where most companies do not do a very good job, there's something we call alumni relations program, which is following the exit of the employee, but to bring back the knowledge. Remember, I talked about expanding the cognitive perimeter to include other parties other than current workforce. So engage selected former employees as a knowledge reserve force, as a knowledge base that can be consulted when problems or questions arise.
第三个就是在这个员工离开之后的一个计划，叫做前员工关系计划。就像我们前面提到的，就是组织要扩大它的这个知识边界，它可以通过，也可以就是充分就是利用到它之前的员工。但这个呢，大多数公司其实在这方面都没有做得太好。这个具体呢，主要是你可以就是选定就是比较核心的重要的一些全员工，然后让他们就作为你的这个知识储备，然后可以为现有的员工也是当成他们的一个资源。这个三部分呢，后面我们再来一一看。
So phase A is what we call the knowledge resources inventory. And I'll describe this slide in a second, but knowledge resources, basically, each knowledge worker has a unique footprint, and I've studied this in organizations of para-knowledge, that is information resources. Each knowledge worker has a unique set of information they use most often, meetings they attend, projects and teams they sit on, reports they produce, standard procedures for frequent tasks, contact lists, community and network memberships. These all constitute the epistemic footprint, the knowledge footprint of an individual knowledge worker. This might be somebody who's retiring, for example.
我们再来看第一个阶段，第一个阶段是知识资源盘点。我们知道，就是每一位知识工作者，他都有一个独特的足迹。这个足迹主要就是他这个准知识，他的资源主要是信息资源，就非常独特的信息资源。这些信息资源主要包括他日常使用的信息，他定期参加的会议，然后他参与的这个项目团队，以及他就是工作中制作的报告。然后包括他经常性任务的这个标准程序，以及他在公司内部和外部的他的一个联系人的一个清单，然后最后就是他参与的可能社区啊或者各个网络，然后他可能是某个可能外部可能组织的一个会员，然后这个呢也要就是了解到，也要把它记录下来。
This knowledge resources inventory can be achieved with a mix of surveys, personal interview or interviews, and also can be done now, is starting to be developed technologies that can monitor information resources use. One of these is illustrated on the right-hand side. I just happened to run across this thing called a work graph from Sirocco.com. I haven't used that and I don't endorse that, but the concept is that it automatically maps the technology uses and information resources uses of a knowledge worker.
我们就是这个知识型员工，他的这个信息资源的获取的方式呢，主要我们可以通过调查以及对他个人的访谈以及技术监测这等多种方式实现。那右边呢是来自这个Sirocco 这个 .com 这个网站里面的就是来的一张工作图。那这个工作图呢，也是就是一种工具吧，工具它可以就是帮你自动的绘制这样一张它的这个工作图。
This timing of this, while it should be done before an employee leaves, it should be done well before that. It should be an ongoing exercise because it's useful for other purposes. I've done this with a client organization and found that, for example, people were using different resources to solve the same problem. So having a count, an inventory of the resources as they're being used is useful for other purposes as well. But it should definitely be captured before somebody leaves the company.
那这个信息资源呢，主要是它的获取的时间点呢，它是持续的，因为至少你要在这个员工离开之前一定要获取到。那这个得到这个信息资源的时候呢，因为可以给就是现有的一些组织内部人员使用，然后不同的人他可能会就是用不同的资源来解决相应的问题，或者也可以用作其他的目的。
So phase B then is something called mentored offboarding. And whereas when an employee joins an organization, nowadays that largely consists of intaking parent knowledge or information resources, or reading things, studying documents. Onboarding, when a company brings an employee in, has a lot of that information-based immersion happening.
第二个阶段呢，是在就是员工在离职的时候，对他进行一个辅导。我们在员工在入职的时候呢，主要是要就是记录，然后吸收这个员工他具备的这个信息资源。
So offboarding is just the reverse process. When an employee is leaving, there should be a documentation of their knowledge resources on an individual basis, as we described in the previous slide. There should also be an interview template, an inventory template, KRI template, so that the same information is collected from each employee. A personal interview is strongly recommended, and even a coaching, mentoring phase is recommended. It's highly beneficial to transfer these information resources, these parent knowledge resources, over to somebody else who will be taking on that job.
然后除了我们入职的时候呢，就是记录一下这个员工的信息资源，然后在员工离职的时候呢，我们要记录一下他个人的知识资源。那这里呢，就是组织呢应该要有一个标准化的个人知识资源盘点模板，我们要就是充分的利用这些工具，然后一定要对这个人进行一个个人的访谈，同时我们也建议就是进行一个就相对比较长期的这个导师或者教练的项目。
This should happen at least at the very minimum 60 to 90 days before the employees exit. So
这个建议的时间节点呢，就是进行这个辅导的时间节点，最好是在这个员工离开之前，就是60到90天。
So the employee relations is phase C, the employee relations program. Some companies do this very well, but most companies do not do this. When an employee leaves, they just leave. There's no relationship with the company. But some companies have done this, and it's very effective to engage former employees as, you could call them fellows or some honorific. They become a resource base that's available to current employees. Obviously, you need to screen for conflicts of interest in case an employee goes to a rival competitor firm. But given that, former employees can be a tremendous resource so that the human knowledge doesn't just walk out when the human being walks out.
第三部分呢，就是一个关于前员工的关系计划。因为这个有的公司呢做的是比较好的，就是我们可以就是让那些离开的员工，让他成为你的，给他就是设定一个头衔，比如说成为荣誉伙伴。那这个之前的员工呢，他就可以当成一个资源储备，然后可以提供给现在的员工。同时一定要注意，就是排除到这个利益的冲突，特别是如果这个员工他吃到了你的竞争对手的话，这个时候一定要规避一下利益冲突问题。
As far as why an employee would do this, there's a combination of what in the United States we call recognition and reward. Recognition is often enough. That is an executive acknowledgement of contributions to a community of expertise, and even more importantly, what the results were from that shared knowledge. But sometimes an actual reward, a tangible reward, like a financial honorarium, or even sometimes just a dinner or a social event, a social outing or something like that, can be enough to get people engaged and willing to share their expertise.
那在针对全员工呢，我们也会有一个就是报酬的制度，这个报酬就要分为两方面，一方面是就是因为这个前员工他会就是针对你们的这个就是比如说一个专业的社区或者社群，然后他们在这个社群里面 他们分享了他们的知识，然后就是对此做出的贡献，以及因为他们分享了他的知识，所以导致你们就是有了一些就是比较有效的好的成果。那这个时候呢，给予他这个高管致谢。那另一方面呢，是可以给予一些物质上的奖励，包括可以给予一定的酬金，或者说近期举办一些晚宴或者是社交的聚会，然后以这种方式就是让提升对方的这个参与的这个意愿和提升他的这个投入参与度。
The timing is, of course, after the exit of the employee, but the terms under which this will happen with a given employee can be arranged during the exit process, can be negotiated during the exit process.
然后这个前员工关系计划的时间节点呢是在这个员工离开以后，但是关于这个员工计划呢，我们需要他就是在离职之前需要跟这个员工协商好，然后具体并且体现在就是一定的条款协议里面。
So this is all of what I've told you is consistent with this knowledge resources management framework that my firm has pioneered and has been using. It all starts with the inventory, with the knowledge resources inventory, either on an individual level or, as I mentioned, these things scale up. So on an enterprise level, our approach then continues to the measurement, the assessment of ROI, benefits, costs, both current and future, and then managing the knowledge resources as if it were a portfolio of financial resources, where you would add to the winners and reduce the losers and align everything to the overall strategies of the organization. I describe this more on my website if anyone is interested, on the knowledge agency website indicated there.
这个就是我们的这个1、2、3绘图衡量这个管理的这个就是资源管理的这个模型呢，是我们公司然后设计的，然后我们也是就是使用这个工具的一个应该是比较早先就应用了这个工具的。然后我们这个工具呢，它跟这个企业的大多数他们的解决方案、他们的战略呢是一致的。首先我们是帮助这个企业去可以做这个知识资源的盘点，就是我们前提到就针对每个知识员工，然后把他们的工作流程绘制下来，就是把他们的活动资产都绘图，就是以绘图的形式体现出来。第二个呢，就是我们是通过衡量，就是能够评估这个知识它的这个投资回报率，然后是说用户收益是怎样的，然后成本又是怎样的，然后包括它当前和未来就是都能就是带来什么样的结果。然后第三个就是我们是持续的进行管理，对拥有的知识资源进行优化，就是能够就是让就是更多的人从中受益，然后同时也是确保与这个组织的战略保持一致。
And that's really the end of my comments. I hope that people, if there's anyone on the call, will feel free to reach me through LinkedIn, through email. There's more information on my website about the company. There's more in my personal blog, timwoodpowell.com, and my Amazon page. And certainly you can always reach me through my new friends at the mentoring company. So I very much appreciate your time and attention. That's the book. I'm holding the book in my hands and the photograph. So I'm hoping you can, or your organization can find access to that, which will explain a lot of this a lot more. And I really might appreciate your time. I don't know if there's anybody on the call, if we have questions from you guys or comments or.
然后大家如果就是有问题，或者说想就是跟我有所交流的话，大家可以就通过以下方式联系到我，是刚才有我的 LinkedIn， 也有我的个人的博客网站，然后或者大家也可以就是通过 MentoringCo 然后联系到我。好，大家现在有什么问题的话可以提出来。
Thank you, Tim. Wonderful sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. Isi, thank you very much for your crisp translations, and really I appreciate it so much. The slides were just beautiful. They worked very well. I realize there's a lot of material there, and I realize some people had to leave at 9. I got a few comments, but I'm glad for everybody who's here. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to take it. I realize we did go full 90 minutes, and I apologize. for going that long. There was a lot of stuff here, but I really do appreciate your support so much.
Thank you, Tim.
That's fine. Thank you for your
You're
wonderful
welcome.
sharing. 大家现在有什么问题的话，可以就是向 Tim 提问。
各位朋友，大家有哪些有问题吧 ？OK， 如果说大家没什么问题呢，最后呢，我们想花点时间呢，请大家给我们做一个反馈啊。Thank you, Tim. Yeah. Let me try to share one screen. I would like to have everyone to give us some feedback on our webinar today. So, yeah. Can everyone share my see my screen? 那看到屏幕吗 ？Okay, good. Okay. So, okay. So, 那么今天的讲座呢就到此。那我们后面呢非常感谢大家参加我们的在线讲座，希望能得到你的对我们本次讲座的这个反馈，以便我们做得更好啊。你可以扫码关注一下啊，我们这个二维码，然后呢弄完以后呢给我们提供一些你的一些宝贵建议，你的宝贵建议将有助于我们把这个活动呢做得更好，好吧？谢谢各位。那个 IC 我们下一次讲座是几号？是14号对吧？啊
19号
，19号对吧
？19号，10月19号。
那这样的，我们也同时欢迎大家关注我们10月19号的另外一位嘉宾的演讲，好吧？10月19号我们再见，好吧？谢谢各位啊，欢迎大家，感谢大家的时间参与，然后呢，也感谢大家的反馈，然后呢，我们19号再见。那如果你想就获得本次活动的这个 PPT 的话，那么你就呢，那到你扫这个二维码加入这个群里面来，也可以获得本次讲座的这个 PPT。OK， 甚至我们这个活动的这个讲座的这些视频，好吧？如果你需要的话，你可以去获得这样的加到这个公众号里过来，你就可以拿到了，好吧 ？OK， 好，谢谢各位啊，谢谢各位啊。那如果说还有哪些朋友呢，对我们这个博鳌论坛感兴趣的话，然后呢，你可以去扫码，然后呢去获得我们今天这个目前的早点票，因为这个票的越往后面呢会比较贵一点，好吧？那么这样的你可以很早就把这个票可以 book 到，好吗？好，谢谢各位，好吧？那行 ，Thank you, Tim, for your sharing. I mean, this is really very valuable sharing on tacit knowledge management, and really, especially the last sessions on the applications, how to do that in the corporate side. This is really very useful, and people can just adopt and use it in their organizations. Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you very much.
I wish you have a great day.
Thanks so much. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
谢谢 IC 的翻译，谢谢 ，Thank you， 拜拜。OK， 好，那感。